Welcome back. Panel is with us. Our election eve panel is NBC News White House correspondent Kristen Welker, NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Casey Hunt, Rich Lowry, editor of National Review, and the former Democratic senator from Missouri, Claire McCaskill. I want to start with just showing since the last debate, this actually has been a campaign. We've seen a decent amount of travel, but I want to compare the travel here in the last basically 10 days. Here's the Joe Biden travel schedule. He's made it to 7 states, essentially, with about 10 stops in 7 states over since the last debate. Now here's Donald Trump, who basically has gone to 12 states, basically about double the amount of stops in states. Kristen Welker, you travel with both of the candidates, I think, this week. Have seen a piece of both of them. Look, the Trump frenetic schedule, they're basically campaigning how they view the virus to be.
That's right, Chuck. Look, this is a tale of 2 very different campaigns. I was in Florida and Georgia this past week. I can tell you there is so much enthusiasm on the ground, but we are seeing really a stark difference in how both of these candidates are campaigning. President Trump holding huge rallies, very different, very little social distancing, few masks. Joe Biden, on the other hand, has drive-in rallies. It's all about social distancing, not as many people, and the messaging very different as it relates to the key issue, fighting COVID-19. One Trump official telling me, look, this election will be won and lost on COVID-19. And inside Trump world, there is some concern that his messaging just hasn't been disciplined enough. He's trying to argue that the country is turning the corner as it relates to COVID. They want him to be focused on fighting the virus and on the economy. For Joe Biden, he's trying to argue that President Trump has waved the white flag as it relates to COVID. But inside Biden world, I can tell you there are some Democrats who worry he hasn't been aggressive enough out on the campaign trail. So I know that the Trump world feeling very bullish on Florida, North Carolina, and those critical states. The Biden campaign has a little bit of PTSD from 2016, so they are cautiously optimistic.
Well, I want to stick with COVID here, Casey. Look, the president all week long has been complaining about the focus on COVID. Here's an example.
And a safe vaccine is coming very quickly. You're going to have it momentarily. That eradicates the virus, and we're rounding the turn regardless. You know that. And you know that everything's COVID, COVID, COVID. You know that. You turn on the news, COVID, 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 COVID. If you get it, you're going to get better. And then you're going to be immune, and it's a whole thing, and it goes away. You know, our doctors get more money if somebody dies from COVID. You know that, right?
Casey Hunt, look at these headlines today. These are the front pages in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Des Moines Register, Minneapolis Star-Tribune, Columbus Dispatch, all with front page highlights of a spike in cases locally, a spike in deaths locally, a spike in hospitalizations locally. This is an awfully big gamble by the president.
This is the coronavirus election, Chuck, and it's clear from those clips you just played of President Trump that he knows it. You know, former President Obama mocked President Trump, saying he was jealous of the media coverage, that Trump was jealous of the media coverage the virus was getting. Of course, not how that works. And, you know, these spikes in these states are in many ways reflective of the policy decisions that have been made. There are also questions about whether these rallies that the president is holding are contributing directly to coronavirus spikes in some of these swing states. We've obviously seen the numbers with seniors in our new Wall Street Journal NBC News poll out this morning. I mean, if you and I had been talking about seniors potentially going for the Democrat 4 years ago, I think we would have laughed at ourselves in many ways. All of these things related to this virus. And, you know, combine that, you see these incredible numbers of early voting. You were talking with the pollsters about and the election officials about potentially historic turnout. That's because literally every single person in America is affected by this. There is no hiding from it.
Rich Lowry, look, we were here 4 years ago, though I don't think the numbers look nearly the same as they look now. Are we missing something? Do you think we're missing something?
Well, obviously, you much prefer to be Joe Biden at the moment. There's been almost no sign of any tightening of the polls nationally, but you look at the traditional red states that are battlegrounds now, plus Florida, And this is a race balanced on a knife's edge between a potential Biden blowout and Trump getting to the cusp of 270. Now, I say the cusp because he can nip and tuck his way in all these states, Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and he still needs a blue wall and probably Pennsylvania. And that's why if you look at the travel map you just had up, you'd think, Trump's now official resident of Florida. You think he's official resident of Pennsylvania because they're a step behind there. Their voters are going to come on Election Day, but they need him to come in a massive way, perhaps a biblical way, to overcome what's happening in the suburbs in Pennsylvania and elsewhere around the country.
Claire McCaskill, Rich Lowry brought up a theory that that I have in this race is that each state in the battleground could be very, very tight, but they could all tip in one direction, giving a big gap in the Electoral College.
That's true. I mean, there's no question that it could tip big time one way or the other. On the other hand, who knew that we would be talking so much about North Carolina and Georgia at this point in the election? I mean, clearly the Biden campaign is on offense and the Trump campaign is on defense. And Trump has really ignored, relatively speaking, some states that he has to win. And you know what? Fear. Democrats are afraid of the polling right now, and fear motivates. And so does attempts at voter suppression. So I think this narrative that the turnout on Election Day is going to be heavily, heavily weighted pro-Trump, I'm not so sure about that.
Look, I think with the closing on the virus, I think you're right to say, you know what, let's wait to see what the vote actually looks like. Let me pause it there. When we come back, we're going to have a lot of fun talking Senate races. Hello from Washington, I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.